So here we are in our last and fourth session, thinking about Jesus' death on the cross. And in this session, we're going to be thinking about how Jesus' death is a role model, how Jesus' death on the cross shows us how we're to live in life. But let me start with a story. What do you want me to do for you? It was a question a maths teacher asked me when I'd forgotten to do a really important assignment. I think it actually was a percentage of my final GCSE, and I came in really distressed. It was a genuine mistake, saying, I've not finished, I've not done it. And she said to me, well, what do you want me to do for you? It was kind of a way of her shrugging her shoulders and saying, this is out of my control. What's done is done, and I can't do anything to help you. But now imagine that question coming from someone who just days earlier, weeks earlier, you had seen control nature. Imagine that question coming from someone who weeks earlier you'd seen drive out demons and free a man who'd been chained and shackled. Imagine that question coming from a man that just a few weeks earlier you'd seen bring a young girl back to life. What do you want me to do for you? Amazingly, that is the question that Jesus asks his disciples in Mark chapter 10. So if you've got a Bible there, it would be really good to have you turn to that and have a look. Have a look, Mark chapter 10 and sentence 36. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asks them. I wonder if Jesus asked you that question, how you'd reply. Maybe if you're a young sports person, you'd say, Jesus, give me the skills and the ability to break into the first team, to maybe even have a career doing this. And maybe you'd think about your financial situation or some relationships which feel pretty fractured. And so, Jesus, would you just bring about some kind of reconciliation or healing here? Maybe right now, lots of us would say, Jesus, I just want to see and hug loved ones, and I just want to be able to do that. What do you want me to do for you? Have a look at James and John's response, would you, in sentence 37. It says this, they replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. What James and John want is a throne. Did you see that? What's quite remarkable here actually is the context. Jesus just minutes before, in the sentences that came before this, has been talking to them about his own death. He's been explaining to James and John and those other close disciples of his own that imminently he's going to end in Jerusalem and they're going to slaughter him. His life is going to come to an end. And in fact, he's described it in pretty graphic detail. And then he turns to them and says, what do you want me to do for you? And notice they don't respond with love and care for their friend and say, oh, Jesus, just stop this happening. They don't say, Jesus, give us the power in legal court to argue your case so convincingly that you're going to be set free. They don't say, Jesus, arm us and get us ready for battle that we might rescue you from this crucifixion. They have no focus or perspective on Jesus. It's entirely inward focused. Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory, they say. They don't plead for his safety or their safety. They just want the position of power. In fact, if you think about it for a moment, these two brothers, James and John, what's dawned in their mind is, well, Jesus is about to die. He's our central figure. They're beginning to recognize him as Christ's anointed king. They're not quite there, but they're starting to realize this immense power he has and recognize that Jesus should rightly be on this place, on this throne, this place of authority. But Jesus has told them he's about to die. Are they maneuvering themselves into the best positions to take that central throne for themselves? It's all about themselves. They want Jesus to give them control over their own lives. They want Jesus to give them the ability to determine their future, to make their own decisions and see those decisions become a reality. Interestingly, it's not just James and John who are like that. Just glance further forward into the story to sentence 41. Do you see what it says there? It says, when the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Elsewhere, where this story is slightly more unpacked, we're told that their indignation towards James and John is because James and John got in there first. They're indignant that James and John managed to ask the question, come on, Jesus, put us in these positions of power, before the other 10 managed to get in there. The point is, somewhere in all of our human hearts is this desire for a throne. is this desire that we can be in control of our own lives, that we would have the authority, the influence, the power to determine our own life. That's what we all deeply desire. Now, James and John here are the most overt. We're a little bit more sly about it. We can camouflage it a little bit more carefully, but it is in all of us. We strive for that position of being able to control our own lives. I remember watching kids at a playground once, and they were playing that game. I remember playing it when I was a young kid as well, but they were having a whale of a time, laughing and laughing as they tried to scramble up this small hill that had a slide at the top, scramble up to the top, push each other down, rugby tackle, and if one of them managed to get it, they'd sing that little ditty, "I'm the king of the castle, you're the dirty rascals." But you see, all of us are trying to do that like James and John, trying to strive to get into that position where we can say, I'm the king of my castle. Not necessarily to control or influence other people, but at least to have control over our own lives. Now see what Jesus is looking for. Not people who want a throne. Have a look at sentence 42, would you? It says, Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Do you see that little phrase in sentence 43? Not so with you. Jesus is not looking for those who want a throne. Jesus is looking for those who are willing to be servants. Not lord it over or exercise authority, but whoever wants to become great must be a servant. Whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all. That's the heart attitude Jesus is looking for. And then did you see who that's like? It's like Jesus. Sentence 45, Mark 10, verse 45, such an important verse in my own life. It says, "For even the Son of Man," that's a self-referral by Jesus, "did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for all." The death of Jesus on the cross is the primary role model we have of what it means to live life for Jesus and for God. It's to be a servant, to be a slave, even to be a sacrifice, be ready to give our lives for others, not to seek the throne, not to seek the place of power, not to seek to determine our own life or our own direction, but to say, actually, I am ready to surrender it all. See, James and John and us, we inherently want a throne with all its security and all its status. But Jesus is looking for those who are willing to face risk and hardship and sacrifice, who will surrender their security and comfort and status to serve. Christians are servants. Not to make ourselves nothing, but to use what we are to make others something, just like Jesus does on the cross. He doesn't make himself nothing. He seeks to make others something. So is that your heart attitude? That's the conversation I want to invite you to have together.